Good. All right. So I was waiting for you guys to come in, and we'll go ahead and get it, in. Let me go ahead and mount this. I can raise it up actually. So let's go ahead and raise it up. I told y'all to come back in. It's up to you. All right. And let's shrink. Let's shrink it a little bit. And this is gonna be on my bedroom TV. And I'll go ahead and give the shout outs to the origin of the individual who was doing this. Oh, come on, you're acting real fetchy there. All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay. All right, let's up. We got a little crooked here. Why is do that? All right. Okay. So I told him to come back in. Okay. Sound like what's his name? All right, let me go over here and let me get rid of the last one uploaded, and we'll go ahead and then I'll go ahead and give the preface. Everything. Come on, dude. Why does it get? What's going on with all this? I think this is what they're doing. I guess this is comical. All right, so what's going on, baby? What? Yeah, so let me go ahead and get rid of the last one. And I knew it was going to do that. So I'll get rid of that later. Let me go into the library. Let me go into which card? Snaps, YouTube Studio. And let me just disregard this because that's just stupid that they even did that. All right. Let's go ahead and tap on it. So I'll go ahead and give the bio on this again. Excuse me. Okay. Content. Bada boom, bada bing. Live. And let me see. Yeah. All right. So cool. So I can go ahead and get rid of this one. We'll delete that. Leave from YouTube. And you guys are still there, so I got rid of that. And I'll answer all the questions. I saw some questions up there. So, again, let me turn this around on me. All right. So, what this is, again, like I said, this is Gaia Original. This is a series of ancient catalysms that erase human history by the Zohar, Stargate Ancient Discoveries. And you'll see the individual's name. And it's pretty friggin' interesting. I just feel like, you know, hey, look, I got to load my ammo, so I don't want to be doing that on the screen. But anyway, we're going to let this play out, and I'm going to let you listen to a little bit of it. I don't want to get it all in there, and I'll put the copyright up because it's open domain, it's on YouTube, and it's for learning purposes. You dig what I'm saying? So we're going to turn it around, and we're going to get it rolling, okay? I could have did which call downstairs and actually did end screen, but we're not even going to do that here. Let's go ahead and make sure it's up loud. And
in the beginning, after a great devastation, the gods came and manifested humans again. And this is a theme that we see repeated all over the world.
There is a continuity in the stories that cannot be dismissed. One of those continuities is the story of the Great Flood.
That's reflected in the Babylonian text.
I find it pretty interesting. Let me go ahead and get rid of the...
In the Egyptian
okay,
text,
it's off.
they
okay,
all mention
something
similar.
When you do a deep survey into the myths from around the world, it talks about a dark world and the end of an age. And then there's this cataclysm and this flood occurs and the individual escapes the flood. And then after that, it is the beginning of this golden age.
Okay, I'm going to take you on an adventure.
This is Brian Forster.
It's
pretty good. It's pretty good. I enjoy watching his stuff.
Of an ancient series of cataclysms that happened in deep antiquity prior to the time that civilization is supposed to have existed, and you'll see that lost ancient high technology and very advanced civilizations were on this planet 12,000 plus years ago. So we're going to study sites of a megalithic nature in Peru and Bolivia, also in Egypt, even more evidence in Peru and Bolivia, even more evidence in Egypt, and also Mexico, and specific sites such as Pumapunku and Tiwanaku in Bolivia, and Baalbek in Lebanon. So this location is called Machu Picchu, located in the high Andes of Peru. And what you can see in the photograph is the stonework in the lower half is superior to the work in the upper half. Now, some people would say, well, the lower half work was the foundation, therefore, it had to be stronger than the upper stonework. However, look at this. This is also at Machu Picchu, and this wall was never restored in modern times, was unknown to the Spanish conquistadors, and so this is from the Inca time frame, up to around 1535 AD. And you can see that the upper work is more or less rubble compared to...
You know what's funny? Why is it only melanated people? We have aunts and you know, and mamas and grandmamas with the name Inca, but nobody else does.
The megalithic work below. So what you're seeing evidence of is that the Inca found the ancient site of Machu Picchu and they rebuilt it. The mystery is, who were those that came first and did the original megalithic construction? And we have legends from around the world, not simply from the Bible, but more than 200 indigenous cultures
200
talk about an ancient flood, whereby their world, whether it was a continent or simply an island, went through a flood stage where the ocean level rose and those that lived there had to flee. So we're getting more and more scientific evidence that something came into our solar system around 12,000 years ago and wreaked havoc. It quite possibly created what's called the asteroid belt. It might have turned Saturn or Uranus on its side. It may be the reason why Venus turns or rotates backwards and why our planet is at a tilt of 23.5 degrees. Because in a perfect universe, all of the planets should be perfectly vertical and moving in harmony with each other. So this man was called Plato, and he wrote an account based on much earlier accounts and even much earlier accounts that there was a landmass that existed called Atlantis, located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and that this landmass disappeared approximately 12,000 years ago. His, of course, was not a first-hand account. The sources go back to ancient Egypt.
Now, mind you, it's a pale skin telling the story, so the narrative he's going to paint is always going to be pale skin and not based upon the truth of history known. Just look up the individual's name. Just look him up. Like I said, again, Brian Forster, and you can get a little more background on the individual. So we're just going to go ahead and listen. I'm not going to do a whole lot of inserting, but remember, this is for learning, for teaching, all right? And that's all this is for.
But there could be some actual truth to the story and legend of Atlantis. Also, about 12,000 years ago, you had the die-off of what are called the megafauna of North America. Millions of giant animals very rapidly disappeared. And there's no environmental shift or climate change shift or whatever that can explain such a rapid decimation of the woolly mammoths, the saber-toothed cats, etc. However, in Siberia, thousands, if not millions, of woolly mammoth. In Siberia, thousands, if not millions, of woolly mammoths have been found flash frozen.
Yes.
With food still in their mouths.
Yep.
And climate change can't explain that. But maybe something happened to the orientation of our planet. Possibly one day it was vertical, and then the next day it was tilted by 23 degrees.
That is to dismiss the custodians.
Etc. could have moved from a
That is to dismiss the custodians and Anunnaki and the fact that a reset or the creator or creation, which allowed this, because in order for our creator to return, he must allow them to do the things they do. And that's why it was important that when I read these books, you hear that they're confusing is the source to which we come from, you know, and which they'll never get to understand.
For climate to Arctic almost instantaneously. Because again, why is our planet at a 23-degree tilt, or more specifically 23.5 degrees? Why is it not vertical? It may have been struck by an enormous force that caused it to go from this to that. Conventional academics say that it was the Native American people who wiped out all of these megafauna somewhere around 12,000 years ago, simply by hunting them. But there were millions of them, and probably only thousands of these native people. So that is not a logical answer. However, in the 1950s, a book was written called Cataclysm, Compelling Evidence of a Cosmic Catastrophe in 9500 BC, which is 11,500 years ago. But let's just round the whole thing off to 12,000 to make it simpler. So according to them, a comet or pieces of a comet struck the planet and wreaked havoc, wiped out the megafauna, changed the environment of the entire planet, because you have, again, movement from perfectly vertical to 23.5 degrees. So that means going from tropical suddenly to temperate, temperate suddenly to Arctic, etc. That would have wiped out almost all plant and animal life and human life on the Earth. And so their work was then followed up by Barbara Hahn Clow, and her book was originally called Catastrophobia. And in it, she states that 12,000 years ago, a series of cataclysmic events happened. Most of the human population died out, and those that survived had to find refuge in recesses, as in caves. So according to her, this is the caveman period, from about 12,000 years ago until about 6,000 years ago, when we have the rise of civilization. So she believes that the rise of civilization, such as Sumeria, the Indus Valley, Egypt, etc., was a renaissance. It was not the first evolvement of high civilization, but a renewal of humanity. And then we have Dr. Paul Laviolette, who's an American physicist.
Dr. Paul Laviolette.
And according to his research, the center of our galaxy is not a black hole, but a pulsar. And every 13,000 years, or precessional cycle, half of a precession,
dismissing the North Pole,
the center of our galaxy fills up with energy, and because it's a pulsar, it then releases the energy. So this energy, including gamma rays, etc., spread across the galactic plane, entered our solar system, created the asteroid belt, went through the sun, and shot solar plasma straight at our planet. And so you see that these theories from different sources are starting to overlap. And his theory is called the galactic superwave. Again, once every approximately 13,000 years. And the work of geologist Robert Schoch. Now, he emphasizes the solar plasma theory. It's not that the solar plasma struck all over the Earth, but very specific random locations. We're going to see evidence that his theory makes a lot of sense. So when we take all of those theories...
Sounds like a cataclysmic weapon, doesn't it, guys?
...and put them together, we come up with my book, Aftershock, which looks at, I think, the most compelling aspects of those different theories and puts them together in a cohesive manner. And so according to Schoch, he believes that the end of the last ice age, which was about 12,000 years ago, was incredibly dramatic, and that the solar plasma caused a mass, especially of the northern ice sheet, as in the North Pole, to not simply melt, but to vaporize from ice to vapor, and that caused what's called the Great Flood, as in rain for 40 days and 40 nights, or maybe 40 years. But mounting scientific evidence is showing that the world's oceans rose by 300 plus feet, or 100 meters, very rapidly, and very rapidly meaning maybe in a year or less. This could have been what we call the flood. So rather than Atlantis being a landmass that sank, the waters rose and buried this ancient civilization, and possibly...
Now, I'm going to show y'all something right quick. I want you to look at this. I think it may assist you in a little bit as far as Mr. Brian Foster, okay? Brian Foster has explored more than 90 countries, but his true passion is researching and writing about the ancient megalithic works found in Peru, Bolivia, Mexico, Easter Island, Egypt, England, and beyond. His 23 books are available on his website and Amazon.com. 50 Times the Ancient Aliens, a television series, as well as numerous of other TV and radio presentations. Brian's popular YouTube channel contains more than 850 videos related to hidden history and megalithic sites. Full bio and Bidens, you can do all that. But what they won't tell you is hidden Inca tours where he discussed, as far as the pyramids, the secrets of the Freemasons in Washington. And why would that be so? Why would he illuminate to such ideology? Well, let's see if we can pull it up here. Apparently, we have original only largest outdoor Masonic lodge in the world, in Peru, blah, blah. And yes, he is part of that. Now, y'all remember when I was reading Atlantis, those who were with the heliocentric and wanted to dismiss and debunk and prove the Earth being round and having a South Pole, he is part of that whole diaspora. Okay? Here, let me show you something. I just want you to look at this. Freemason, Masonic, Mason, occult, Brian Foster, Aftershock, the ancient catalytic that erased human history. And there's plenty more that allude to him being part of that whole Master Mason, beyond 33rd degree, occultist. And he will share information. And it's funny how they're always sharing information, but they want it to be something other than what it is. And they will always push their narrative of heliocentrism, an Earth that looks some kind of way, while giving some truths, but they want to keep you conflicted in the lie and not expand or expound on the truth. Now, this is alleging. I am alleging.
Others, those that were able to, escaped. Those that were not able to, perished. And those with advanced technology that were able to escape may have resettled in different areas, such as the highlands of Peru and Egypt. So solar... That's
like when the punks send a little idiot to do a real man's job, and they don't know that they're not dealing with a man all the way. These people are stupid.
Plasma is so intense in terms of heat that it would vaporize anything where it struck. That means all organic life would be gone in a flash. All the plants, all the animals, all the knowledge. What would be left behind would be stone structures. And this is where we get into the curious structures beginning in Peru. You can see where my finger is. That is a basalt stone wall in the city of Cusco.
Look at his ring.
Basalt is 7 out of 10 hardness, with 10 being diamond. If this was created by the Inca civilization, they only had bronze chisels with a hardness of 3.5.
And we know that's a lie.
You can't cut basalt at all with...
What did he first state about the ancient civilization 12,000 years ago? They were more sophisticated. Are y'all paying attention? Do you see his ring? What does that illuminate? What does that illuminate? Look at him.
Bronze. It'd be the equivalent of trying to cut down a tree with a plastic knife. It's impossible. It's not difficult, it's impossible. So this wall, for example, you can't fit a human hair in the joinery, and this wall is more than 3 feet thick, perfect from front to back and inside. This would be very difficult to achieve today. And then another structure, which is Inca. This is where we get into the Inca building on an older foundation. So here you see that 3/4 or 4/5 of the wall.
Mudslide, and you're gonna love when I start reading about the mudslides. All the books I have on that
are actually adobe, which is a mix of clay, mud, and stone. And at the base, we have a basalt megalithic structure. So what we can say is that the Inca found the basalt structure and then built on top of it. Also nearby in Cusco, you see on the right side, relative basalt rubble put together with clay mortar, and then on the left, perfect construction in basalt, no mortar, all the stones interlock. So here again, the Inca found the remains of a megalithic site, and they simply built on top of it. And this possibly shows the clearest evidence. On the right-hand side, the intact megalithic basalt wall. Then on the left-hand side below, where the Inca found some of the basalt blocks and put them back into place, then they ran out of material and had to find other stone in the area and fill it in. So there you have 3 different forms of construction, the superior one being on the right and the oldest. Then when we look at a topical map of the city of Cusco made by the first Spanish arrivals around 1535 AD, you see thick walls and thin walls. So this is right when the Spanish first entered Cusco, the first Europeans, and the map maker was able to distinguish the megalithic thick walls with the Inca thin walls. So this is before any colonial Spanish building was done. This by itself shows you that the Inca found an abandoned megalithic city and rebuilt it. And the very complicated polygonal work that we find in Cusco. Every stone, a different shape and size, and these curious knobs protruding from the surface. This is not a logical way of building a wall from a European mindset because we would use uniform shapes and sizes. And so it's kind of an illogical way to do things, but what it shows us is someone had very advanced technology and was able to simply build this quite rapidly and have all the stone interlock, a feat that would be very difficult today.
Now, I know what your minds are saying because of what I've been reading. He published this at a time when nobody was talking about Tartaria. Well, there were a few of us always talking about Tartaria. I've talked about it for the last 30-something years. Yet, he's leaning on people remaining ignorant to the fact. Now, you look at the Leaning Tower of Pizas. You know why it's leaning? Well, they've already dug down and proved that the building's there. It was due to the mud. It was unstable when they built it. They did not build farther enough down to keep it level. That is the reason why it leans. Other than that, it's not a phenomenon. It was built inappropriately on the wrong partial where mud was underneath it. And with these old buildings, these ancient buildings, they were actually part of Tartaria. And he will not allude to that. Now, if you ask him today, with all the information, people talking, after me and a handful of people have been talking about it nonstop, you may get another affirmation.
And again, evidence of an ancient construction technique and then a later Inca construction. This is the base of the wall. And then when we look higher up, you see that the Inca came and filled in using whatever stone they could find in the area. So superior below, inferior above. And this photo shows you how the Inca were trying to replicate the ancient style. They made the stone in the front fit perfectly together, but since this wall was destroyed probably during Spanish colonial times, we can see the inside of the wall. And if you look very carefully, you can see the fitting is like this. You have perfect joinery in the front, but in the back it flares out. That's a relatively easy way to build a wall and make it look like it's complicated. As we wander around the city of Peru, we come to Sacsayhuaman. These stones are the largest ones ever cut and put into place in the Americas. These ones here average 20 to 25 tons, but there are stones at Sacsayhuaman that weigh 125 tons. There is one which is 29 feet tall, 12 feet of it is underground, 17 feet above ground. And then in the upper area, on the left and right, you see the smaller stones. That is Inca repair work, because the Spanish never did repairs at this location. It was a pagan site, they called, so they forbade any use by the Inca or their descendants of it ever since. So that makes it a time capsule. And this, in the Sacred Valley of Peru, is the winter palace of one of the highest of the Inca. And you can see this was made probably in the 15th century AD. You see the inferior style of construction, adobe mud and some blocks stuck together. A royal high Inca, if they were capable of making things in a polygonal and megalithic fashion, would have done so. But this shows they did not have that capability. And then also here, we're at Ollantaytambo, which is in the Sacred Valley of Peru. This is an Inca work. It's relatively crude, but it's large. These were grain storage areas and potato storage areas. It was built 1,000 feet above the valley floor, is huge, but the technology used was really quite simple. Stone and adobe and clay mud. But in the same location at Ollantaytambo, we have this construction. You have 6 granite blocks weighing 60 tons plus, still interlocking almost perfectly. And the quarry from which this granite, or actually porphyry stone, was taken is in the photograph on the left on the top of that mountain. That is across the valley. It's a great distance and an incredible feat for anyone to do. Another clue as to the inheritance by the Inca is when we walk around to the left-hand side and look at the wall. And here we see crude work on top, megalithic work on the bottom. So again, an Inca inheritance reconstructed. Now we're moving to the famous site of Machu Picchu. And Machu Picchu, most academics say, was 100% made by the Inca in the course of 25 years. The sheer scale of the complex would make it impossible to construct in that time period. And once again, we find anomalies. Here, the wall in front is very crude. The wall in the back, all of the stone interlocks perfectly. And this stone is granite with a hardness of 7 out of 10. The Inca were a Bronze Age people. Bronze cannot cut granite or any other hard stone. Then again, as we visit this location one more time, this has not been reconstructed. Look at the crudeness of the work on top as compared to below. The gaps in the giant blocks below were the result of a massive earthquake that likely happened at the time of the cataclysm 12,000 years ago. And this is further emphasized by this three-sided structure where the right side has sunken into the ground by 2 feet or more, almost a liquefaction of the substrate. The wall has been pulled apart, and I was there with a geologist, and she said, if this much damage had happened to this megalithic structure, then the rest of Machu Picchu would be in complete ruins. So the Inca found this structure, could not rebuild it, and then built around it. They built their city around a megalithic core. Also at other locations, we have megalithic structures where, in this case, a multi-ton stone shaped and then simply snapped in half like it was styrofoam. So let's move now to Tiwanaku, which is located 13,000 feet above sea level near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia. This stone is comprised of 2 different types of stone. One is red sandstone from a quarry about 8 miles away. Some of these blocks weighing 100 tons over a rolling landscape. And then the gray stone, which is called andesite, designated by the vertical pillars you see. It's from a quarry on top of a volcano more than 50 miles or 75 plus kilometers away. So at Tiwanaku, which also has a component called Pumapunku, so Tiwanaku and Pumapunku are actually the same location. They were all originally constructed at the same time. Tiwanaku was later inherited by what they call the Tiwanaku culture, and Pumapunku, which is a low-lying structure, was in fact buried by a wall of mud, likely 12,000 years ago, during the cataclysmic events. So here we find the famous H blocks, of which there are 8. Each one is a different shape and size. So there are some theories that the H blocks were created using molds, but each one is slightly different. So each one was crafted individually. And then we go to the excavations. So all of the excavation work done, especially recently at Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, the archaeologists have only dug down 2 feet. And then when you ask them, why don't you dig deeper? Maybe there's more underground. They say no. We don't believe there's anything deeper than that. However, ground penetrating radar done independently has shown there are chambers, quite large, underneath the ground at Tiwanaku and probably at Pumapunku. So this is an example of where academics probably know that there's much more to the history of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, but they are simply ignoring the facts. Again, we have evidence of a massive cataclysmic event, a wall of mud striking Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, a tsunami that came from Lake Titicaca, burying aspects of it, and the precision, which you see in this photograph, would be impossible to have been done by a Bronze Age culture like the Tiwanaku, who were pre-Inca, but still did not have the tools to be able to shape this stone, because this andesite is 7 out of 10 in hardness, bronze is 3.5. These are almost laser flat surfaces. So in Pumapunku, all we see is geometry. All we see are angles. We don't see any artwork. We simply see precision, and we see pragmatic practicality. Recent studies here have shown that there are magnetic anomalies only with the gray andesite. The red sandstone is neutral to the compass, but especially what are called the H blocks, a compass will act very erratically when coming into contact with the surfaces of the andesite. In some cases, if you push the compass into the slot of one of the H blocks, it will turn by 270 degrees, and then when you pull it back out, it returns to the normal magnetic field. This is not the result of the simple nature of the stone having magnetic qualities, but there seems to be a direct relationship between the angles and surfaces and magnetism. So it could be that the cutting of the surfaces involved using magnetism, but we're still in our early phases of looking at this phenomenon, which most other researchers are not looking at whatsoever. Then we come to the giant sun gate, and the sun gate weighs about 11 tons. It was originally one piece of stone. The crack in the right-hand side likely happened during the ancient cataclysm, and all the artwork on the surface was done by the Tiwanaku culture between 2,000 years ago and 1,000 years ago. So they found these flat surfaces and decided to adorn them with surface artwork. The lower surfaces are the original no art, flat surfaces. And during the time of the Spanish colonists, they found it upright but broken in half. And there's evidence that it had been lying on its front surface for thousands of years because the back side is heavily eroded, but the front side was preserved by the fact that it was in contact with the ground itself. So very little erosion, raised up by the Tiwanaku culture 2,000 to 1,000 years ago, carved, and then likely fell down again. And once again, academics are insisting that copper and bronze chisels were used to do all this work. And they also insist that all of the profound work done in ancient Egypt was also done up until the time of 700 BC using copper and bronze chisels. An example of this are these two boxes. The one on the right, they say, is from the 4th dynasty, and it's very rough, as you can see. It's made out of granite, no flat sides, covered in hieroglyphics, very crude, small. The one on the left, they say, is older, and you can see it's much bigger. It has flat surfaces. The lid was cut from the same piece of stone as the box. The inside is almost perfectly flat, and that would require a much higher level of technology than the making of the one on the right. So that's evidence by itself of technology of a more sophisticated nature that happened prior to the 4th dynasty. And then in the museum in Cairo, this is a giant box. Notice I'm not calling it a sarcophagus because these are much bigger than human size. And this is evidence of a mistake happening in the construction of this giant box. Two machines that turn out to be circular saws, the saws being 6 feet in diameter, one on top of the other, were working to cut the lid off, and the upper saw started to move into the box itself and snapped 1/3 of the lid off. So what they did is they simply abandoned the project. They didn't try to take the stone and cut it into smaller pieces. Obviously, their technology was so sophisticated that if they made a mistake, all they would say is, bring me another blank and I'll make another box. And here is the actual evidence. Here we see the tool marks. We see the two circular saws, the one on top shifting into the box, creating the snapping of the lid. And the cutting rate appears to be about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters per revolution. That is 500 times more efficient than a modern 21st century drill or saw. Also, anomalous artifacts such as this. The Egyptologists called this a vase for lotuses, but it looks much more like a piece of a machine. Here in profile, you see there are 3 lobes. Unfortunately, this was restored in modern times. Originally, it would have been technically perfect, but because they tried to fix it, they make it as though it's kind of rough. And so originally, this would be, as you can see by the central shaft, some kind of impeller device, whether it pushed.
Now, I already expressed to you, for those who are coming in, that he's going to push the narrative based upon the Freemasonic order to keep everybody hidden from the truth. And is it keeping people calm to have a lie, or is it because they've made an agreement to betray humanity, to assert more lies? And though he is speaking some truth, those of you in the know now know that a lot of these individuals lie, and yet for what?
Or pulled air or water or energy is unknown. If it was to pull or push, the lobes should be angled, but they are flat and curved. So this is a very out of place artifact, and the fact that it's still on display is quite amazing. And then we also see other mistakes that the academics have made. What we find in the museum are 100 or more vases, dishes, cylindrical jars, and vases with handles that are made out of porphyry, which is a stone of 7 out of 10 hardness or more, basalt and diorite, which are of a hardness of 7 out of 10, with 10 being diamond, and they are listed as being from the Archaic period. Archaic period means pre-dynastic, so older than 3000 BC, and that means they were made prior to the invention of the potter's wheel. And as we look at the artifacts, we see that they had to have been turned on lathes. Now, lathes, as in lathes for, especially for cutting stone and metals, likely didn't exist prior to, say, the 17th or 18th century AD. And the cutting of hard stone like this would require diamond tools. So we're talking late 19th century AD. And yet, a cache of these objects was found at Saqqara, including the so-called schist disc, 30 to 40,000 of them, made during pre-dynastic times. And as you can see in this photo, they had to have been made using lathe machine technology. Also in the museum, we find core drills in granite. And again, the core drill, as far as we know, was not invented until the 19th century AD. So somebody had that technology in dynastic, or more likely, pre-dynastic times. Lost ancient high technology, lost ancient high civilization. Also the Great Pyramid, 2.3 million to 2.5 million multi-ton blocks. If this was done during the time of Khufu, the supposed creator, around 2500 BC, in a 25-year period, that means that each block would have to be cut, moved, and set into place almost perfectly every 2 minutes. That is impossible. We're talking the difference between difficult and impossible. We're getting more into the realm of impossible. Also, if you didn't know, the Great Pyramid is 8-sided, not 4-sided. So that makes the whole design and execution that much more difficult. And we find casing stone still intact on the Great Pyramid. If it was all removed by later cultures to build the city of Cairo, why are there some still attached to the bottom? I think It's because the Great Pyramid system, of which there were at least 8, were all made several thousand years prior to dynastic times. They were energetic structures, so they were amplifying energy, and during the great cataclysmic period of about 12,000 years ago, these structures over-energized, and the casing stone, which was like a skin, blew off the surface.
Over-energized? Are y'all really listening? Are you paying attention to exactly what he is saying? He is slipping things in there. How did they over-energize and blow off the casings? He is telling you it is a center for what? Pyramids have everything to do with Tartaria, central points. And you can see that even laid out in grid form as far as computer chips or Arduinos and things like that for programming.
And so over the course of time, they turned off in terms of their energetic function, and then later civilizations came and simply took the stone from the ground, moved it, and built structures. They didn't physically peel the casing stone off. Also, the Great Pyramid is locked into the Giza Plateau. It doesn't sit on top of it. So that's like it's interlocked into the plateau.
No, as above, as below. There's a pyramid underneath it. See, if it's a pyramid underneath it and it's not flat, that means it disperses any liquid form. Otherwise, it would sink in whole. But if it displaces the weight, it keeps the weight up top. Even in the desert, for as y'all, many of y'all know now, that there is quicksand that has no liquid, as if there's a environment below to which it can fall through.
Plateau itself. And we know now for sure that there are a series of tunnels and shafts on the Giza Plateau. And this was probably part of the energetic nature of the Giza system. It's quite possible that underground water ran under the Giza Plateau in very confined and
let's get them thumbs up, man. What's wrong with y'all? It's free. Oh my goodness. Help the algorithm. It's not gonna hurt you. You don't have to agree with it. Let's each one to teach one. It might not be for you, but it may be for somebody else who has some more information. Don't be so hard and all hard up. Imagine when the end comes and you're sitting there going, wow, I could have made a difference. And here you make no difference at all except being stuck. Maybe you're standing in front of the mirror putting makeup on and shaking your butt. I don't know. That's your own personal problem. But throw the thumbs up here instead of being all so abrasive.
Tunnels, and that generated the piezoelectricity that was then amplified and collected inside the Great Pyramid system. Because I have been 4 levels underground on the Giza Plateau, and I'm told that there are at least 10 more levels below that. Here, on the backside of the...
Is that good enough information? I mean, come on, listen, people.
Great Pyramid are access shafts that go down to the tunnel system. Some of these were made or were used as tombs. They weren't made by the dynastic people, but the dynastic people found these open chambers and of course said, why should we make a tomb when we have one here to use already? And if you're able to, you can get to areas on the Giza Plateau where there are shafts that are at least 14 feet wide, 14 feet long, and 60 feet plus deep. They have sand on the bottom, but if these shafts in bedrock were created 12,000 plus years ago, that gave plenty of time for them to fill up to their current point of being 60 feet deep. They may be hundreds of feet deep. And now also on the Giza Plateau,
maybe hundreds of feet deep. Man, when I get into these mudslide books, y'all gonna be like, what? What? And trust in me, y'all. This is not some fictional stuff.
Evidence of saw marks. These are linear saws cutting into the basalt. And so this would have to be diamond level technology. and penetration rate
or laser
is approximately 1 to 2 millimeters per cut. That is not something the ancient dynastic Egyptians had, something very difficult to do today. And also the curious nature of the acoustics and sounds inside the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid seems to respond to certain tones, and that could be telling us that the interior structure was tuned to specific frequencies. I believe that the Great Pyramids collected the sound or energy, more like vibration or energy, and then transmitted the energy to the great obelisks, because the great obelisks were also not made during dynastic times because they're made of granite, and the dynastic people could not efficiently shape granite, and these weigh in the neighborhood some 400 tons. So it's like an ancient Wi-Fi.
That's like the one at the monument that has always been here, people.
Or energetic system, or Tesla technology. So on the Giza Plateau, you may not know that the Great Sphinx, it was not shaped by people chipping away at it in order to create the design. The Sphinx is in what's called the Sphinx enclosure, so it's actually in a recess, and the giant blocks in front were cut out from the Giza area and moved to the front in order to create what's called the Sphinx Temple. So blocks easily 40 tons or more. One is cut, removed from the enclosure, set into place. Another one is cut and moved right next to it. And you see the amount of erosion on the surface. That is much more than a few thousand years. And we can see the erosion. The face was recarved during dynastic times, obviously. And thanks to the work of Dr. Robert Schoch and 200 other geologists, we can see the vertical erosion, which had to have happened using precipitation or rainwater. It has not rained significantly in the area of the Giza Plateau for at least 10,000 years. So that tells us that the dynastic people around 3100 BC found the Sphinx in place and started to reshape and repair it. Also, we see this ramp made of wood in front of the pause. There are legends that there are shafts or tunnels and or the so-called Hall of Records underneath the front pause of the Sphinx. And Robert Schoch did ground penetrating radar. They found at least one chamber in the bedrock under the Sphinx. And so I was told recently that the reason why this boardwalk was built is because they've already done excavations. They have found chambers underneath it, and they built the boardwalk system to hide the entrance to the shaft, tunnel, and chamber system. It's not done there for tourists. It's done there to hide the evidence. Also near the rump of the Sphinx, we have this grate, which on this day happened to have been removed from where it is. It's on the left hand of the rump of the Sphinx. And when it was removed by an official that was with us, we could see inside there's a metal ladder that goes down inside the Sphinx. So it's quite possible that the Sphinx is hollow or has a series of ancient tunnel and shaft systems built during the construction originally of the Sphinx. Also the bent pyramid, you see the damage to it. Again, it's my theory that it was a vibratory resonant structure, and that during the time of the ancient cataclysm, the surface or the corners blew out. And also notice the two angles. The upper angle,
or the Great War,
was more affected by this cataclysm than the lower angle. This was not simply people coming and ripping pieces off. They simply harvested what was found on the ground. Also, the Red Pyramid, all the casing stone has been reduced to rubble. So I think the casing stone blew off the surface of the Red Pyramid. Inside these structures, again, astonishing acoustics, giving evidence of acoustic and resonance properties inherent with its construction. If they were built as tombs, why would you make them harmonic inside? That makes no sense. Then we come to Saqqara. And at Saqqara, we have a series of 2 tunnels. And in these tunnels, we have boxes weighing 100 tons apiece. So here, in one tunnel, we have a box that was never actually completed, which is curious. But there are 25 plus of these giant boxes. The box itself weighs 70 tons. The lid weighs 30 tons. The lid hermetically seals the box. And the stone is syenite or maybe granite. They're both related stones. The stone likely came from Aswan, which is 500 miles away. And the carving on the surface is very inferior to the shaping of the boxes themselves. You can see the quality of workmanship. Again, it appears that the box and lid would hermetically seal each other. So these are not the tombs of the pharaohs. These are not the tombs of bulls, because this is way beyond the technology of any stage during dynastic Egypt. And the hieroglyphs. The hieroglyphs were actually never completed, and they're very crude in nature, as if somebody was carving them with a hardened nail, whereas the construction of the boxes could not be achieved to this very day. And inside, almost perfect construction.
Or did they deface them? Remember George Orwell?
Again, you see the quality of work of the lid and the acoustics and vibration of the inside. The boxes were tuned to a very specific frequency that could have been ohm. So they were vibratory structures, like the pyramids. The oldest astrological calendars supposedly are in Egypt. Some say they date to about 12,000 years ago, or the whole concept of astrology came up after the Great Cataclysm, that the skies were studied not out of fascination, but out of fear of something else coming in to destroy the earth.
Anunnaki, custodians, Great War. There's your aircrafts. And there's 3 of them. There's one that looks like the Star Wars thing, the helicopter, and the UFO with a fin on it. Aircraft coming in, and what you see is the waves, and that which would become destruction. And you see an aircraft on the ground.
And of course, we find the curious helicopter, tank, and submarine. You only find these in one area of glyphs at Abydos. I honestly don't know to this day whether they depict machines or not. They are curious.
Remember the Ekathera being found in the ocean? Remember Gibraltar with the spaceship solidified in the water? People pay attention.
Then next we go to the Osirion. Here you see the shape and scale. Granite vertical blocks from Aswan again, likely weighing 60 or plus tons. The lintels weighing 40 plus tons. The enclosure is made of quartzite.
Let me say, because I can't see nothing, let me say salute and peace and blissfulness and love to all my brothers and sisters and my kinfolk in the chat.
Which comes from a mountain near Cairo. So again, quartzite from Cairo, that's moving stone hundreds of miles. The granite from Aswan, hundreds of miles. The whole construction was done underground. This was clearly found by the dynastic Egyptians and much, much later by Egyptologists. Cataclysmic destruction, later cutting of stone for other structures. We have evidence of tube drills In this case, the diameter is approximately that big. As far as we know, tube drills of that size could not have been created until at least the 20th century AD.
I'm going to end that right there. I'm going to switch this around to moi. And I'm going to address some things. Excuse me. Let me take this and screw it. I have to actually disembark it from this frame and then reconnect it. You know, it's the way I've got it. Let's see if we can get this thing to stand up right, because it's got the lock on. I don't even know why. And if not, then I'll just go ahead and put it back. I might be sideways, so let me see if I can do this. Oh my goodness. No, I've chat all messages, device. Why does it do the locking thing? It never did that before. And on the side here, it says save highlights, share multiple. You know what? We're going to go. I'm just going to keep it sideways because I'm not going to sit here finagling with all that craziness. This makes no sense. It used to always flip. Oh, is it locked on the side? Let me see. It might be locked on the side, guys. Let me see. It may be. Let's see. Nope. Well, anyway, it's all good. So anyway, as you can see, notes why it's important that I continue to read. Well, I'm reading this on TikTok, and I told you to come on over there. And this is the one. Excuse me, because I got a ton of books here. I was going over these books, and I'm gonna go back into the Geosophical Sketches, volume 1. I actually got volume 2 now, and 3 and 4. And that's about America being an actual world, and the fact that so many things have been hidden to time. And okay, alrighty. You know, the other books are downstairs, and there's some new ones right here too. But we're not going to worry about those. And Heaven Bearers, the Great Reset of 1834 and the Mud Flood. And that's just the hiding of history. The reason why I decided I'm going to read that first thing in the morning. Tomorrow morning, I will definitely, because I got to head back out. I'm just more shooting. I uploaded a video if you saw it. It was just simple. Me putting the 22 through its rounds and spaces at some targets. There was about several targets up. And then when we get into the Gold Discacusa, it'll elaborate on a little more. Excuse the bed. Yeah, I actually was blue when I turned around and put the red back on it because of the so-called fake-ass Christmas. My shooting hat. And I just wanted y'all to hear that. Tomorrow I'm going to get into a little Bobby Hemmett. I actually downloaded about 4 of his, his videos, and we're going to go through each one of them. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. We're not going to listen to the whole thing of this. It goes over an hour and a half. He has so many of one here. Like you said, 400 something, literally. But like I said, I wanted to give a bio on the individual, short one, not his demography of where he's from and who he is, but his background. He's a doctorate in all this stuff, and they're always going to push a narrative to play it safe, all because they need you not to know. Because as far as they're concerned, the sacrifice of all life is very imminent to them being able to go away and be in the other worlds, the other earths. While we're destroyed, we go back to the source. And there's a purpose for going back to the source. There's a book I have on that. And when the source is appropriately annotated, I feel sorry for, and these individuals think they know the numbers. Right now, you could take one from the source and it can come back, if it was allowed, if it wasn't for the creation itself, and come back and destroy everything on its own. All the Anunnaki, it could come by itself and destroy all of them. Just one of our spirit souls, if it were meant to be, could come back, but it's different. It's not about hate, vengeance, and all that. You know, they always say vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, but you know what it means, right? They have a chance to stop what they're doing. I wanted to show this because when he starts speaking about energy and ohms and all that, and I told you that we move like the earth on 8 hertz, It is very important to practice breathing. It is very important to fast unless you're cramping. It is very important to not focus on everything everyone else is saying. You must allow yourself one victory, people, so that way you know what it is to not always be stuck in this ideology of defeat. A friend of mine hit me up talking about, Brad, I saw that, man. What was wrong? What was going on? I said, bruh, dude was out there. I guess I didn't hear no shooting. I stopped at the gate. You know me. I'm looking around like, what the hell? Why is this gate wide open? You got the big trucks there. They're putting dirt. They're building up the gun range. The Gunfighter Canyon's buying it. So it's going to be moving different. We're going to see, it's going to be like a small place for like military to go and train and police. And when I got there, he packed up that quick and left. There was no, hey, what's going on? Like this usual with us out there. Pelts give him a little beard, built like he was a Marine, ex-Army, Delta, something like that. And he left and didn't even close the gate. So I went out there and I was like, you know me, personification of decency. And instead of putting my gloves on, I went and handled the lock. And I was like, you know what? I hope one of these motherfuckers ain't fit there, knowing I was going to come here. I've been saying it all day. And waited for me to come there. This is all hypothetical. I don't worry about it. I don't worry about it at all. Trust me. But I go through these paces because when you start going into these things and you start speaking on certain things that may be relevant and may be enlightening to some people, they don't want that. They need people to be woke, like, you know, dumbed down to whatever it is they've decreed, whatever it is they taught you in their system. They don't want you to think nothing else. Okay? Now, I'm alleging this. I am not saying this is fact. I am not saying he was there doing something, but you pay attention to everything around you. I love the fact there's brothers who drive on the East Coast and they in Carolinas, Georgia, Louisiana, and they drive on these highways and they see these step pyramids. They go back in the woods on their property, and they show you things. They go to mounds that are known. And when I tell you the Mongolians ain't built none of that, the Spaniards ain't built none of that. All right, there wasn't no Asians building it. This earth was a Negro race of people, and that's a fact. Now, we know leprosy is real. We know albinism is real. What is that based upon? How did it happen? Well, in one book I read where they manipulated genes, this, that, and the other, so we couldn't live long, so they can control the narrative. Problem is, the only issue is they can't figure out our spirit, our energy. That 31, 32 ounces that we give up, everyone when they pass on. Doesn't matter if it's a baby or an 800-pound man. Everybody gives up this, as far as man and woman. And if you believe that we are inundated or we move with energy, then why is it so easy for people to come in and dismiss things based on religious ideology? I am not here to debunk, dismiss religion. I am here to state that there is a cohesion of a group of individuals who need people to give all their energy to things other than themselves. And I am telling you, we need to share our energy and keep it with ourselves. Share our energies with each other and with ourselves. If you're 100 miles away and I say, damn, Rondo's feeling bad, it might weaken me for a few days because I haven't ascertained all what I may be the benefactor of. But I'm going to see if I can chant us in a thought, give Rondo some of my energy, you know, or whomever, Mama Red, whoever, LPJ, whoever. I can't do a number. See, I'm going to give, even if I have to give a lot of it in thought. You know, I know what Rondo's face looks like. You know, I know Mama Red's voice. And I tune into that and I send it. Well, there's a disruption all around us. Do we allow that to make us weak? No, we share our energy. You know, we do it in false prayer. We do it in prayers that we believe based upon this language, without people nurturing us for the better and good of truth and healing. No, just go to the RX, you know, and pick up some Tylenol, cold, and flu. But my energy may be able to make you walk and get to a place of safety, to be able to have respite and be able to get your butt in the cold water and to be able to not focus on the pain or the fear of the calamity which can arise, but to let you be calm and ascertain something else, to be able to tap into something else by breathing and saying to yourself, I'm strong, I'll make it through this. This is nothing. I'm all right. I'm fine. And not just believe it, but manifest it by speaking it into reality. Because when you speak, there's a reality. Whether it's a lie, perverse, or the nature of it, when you come around and you know the feeling it can be obscured by the words, because they might not be the actual words you need to say, they're the words you know to say. So you utilize that. But you dig deep within yourself and you breathe and you have no, because let me tell you something. When we transition, calmness does come finally. So instead of waiting for it to come, find that calmness and say, it's all right. Yeah, I'm like millions and millions and millions of others, but I am unlike everyone else. I am me. That sounds kind of crazy coming from somebody who's got guns laying all over the place. I enjoy it. It's fun. I wish y'all were here to enjoy it with me. But we've got to come up out of these lazy shells. Okay? And I thought that might be interesting. And tomorrow we'll go in and we'll look at a little Bobby Hammett and this, that, and other. And we'll listen to that. I'm going to definitely do the reading because I need y'all to pay attention to what I'm reading. Because I'm not saying it's all based on facts or truth. It is so that you can better yourself. Is it about having one up on anybody? Don't even think that way. No egos. Empathy. You can relate because you're here. Do you have to have sympathy for the scourge of the earth? Of course not. But we all need to learn how to breathe. I appreciate y'all taking the time for me to show that, give my little, whatever it is I do. And I hope that was worth it. And I appreciate you all. Right now, I'm about to go back and listen to my Vietnamese guys building this car because I listen to them talk, the words. I write down a lot of their words and I put the English to it. And I'm starting to have a better, clear understanding by listening when they talk, by catching the breaks and the vowels and the adjective or the homily, you know. And yeah, it's another way to help me teach myself another language. You know, linguist looks for words that are compatible. What comes from it? What is it about? How can I use it? All right. So this old engine here is going to sign off. Go watch this other video. Of course, I'm going to do a little reading. Y'all know me. I can't stop. And I hope you enjoyed the little shooting video. It was a little something tiny, a little upload. Give me some thumbs up. Oh, don't worry. I'm going to run some courses here in the road when they get everything set up over there, because right now there's a lot of work going over there. We can run certain little things, but that's stuff taking out shooting plates and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be fun. All right, guys, gals, ladies, gentlemen, you know I love you. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Y'all have a grand evening. Uh-oh, I didn't give a shout out. My apologies. Is there anybody in here? Rondo, APJR, peace, peace, beloved. Platinum and Gold TV, knowledge is power, you know it. Grey Wolf, what's up, beloved? The Berry Boy 18, you already know, peace, beloved. All right, love you guys, and share it. I respect you all, and we're going to circle the wagon, all right? We're going to circle this wagon, you hear me? There ain't no way around it. We're going to circle it.